Welcome to the show today. Today I have Manu Khullar on the show, and he is the Group Vice President IT Business Applications at STMicroelectronics. And I'm very excited to dive into your story today, hear a bit more about what you're up to. We had a really engaging discussion last time, and I'm very excited about this interview. So, Manu, thank you so much for being on the show, first of all, and tell us a little bit more about some of the moments along the journey, along your life that really shaped you as a human being and as a leader.
Well, I had a couple of good defining moments. One was in my middle of when I just joined ST 5 years after. We were running a major project of migration, and at a point in time, we were moving from, and this is way back in '95, we were moving from mainframe to two-tier architecture, and we found a major roadblock in terms of performances. ST is a global company, so we have users worldwide, and we misunderstood all that complexity of being in a network of architecture, and the project came to a standstill because there was no way to go forward with that architecture. And I was given 3 months, and I was told, pick up any team, any number of people, and rewrite. So we actually took 10 people, and we rewrote the whole business applications around sales and marketing, defining actually a 3-layer architecture at the time. And that was really, really refreshing. We saved the project, we saved the team, and it made me understand the value of teamwork, value of human relationship, which goes beyond technical and other things that could make people that actually had no clue what they were doing when they started to really do wonders. And that was really the one defining moment. And second defining moment I had was about 8 years ago. I had a moment where I had to leave my IT role and to move into procurement because of some situation in my workplace. And that was a very interesting moment where basically I could see from outside IT how IT is viewed. I could see as well the human aspect of how the organization works, because when you're in IT, you're 24/7. And that allowed me to look at many things in a very, very deep way, which actually then changed the course of my life. And we'll go later on, I will discuss about those parts as well, which is interesting.
Very interesting moments for sure, yeah, especially in terms of a career perspective as well, in terms of understanding things. Now, you mentioned people a few times along the way, so let's stay there for a moment. Are there some people that shaped you along the way? And if yes, like, who are some of those people?
I was very fortunate to have good bosses. Okay, I was very, very fortunate to have good bosses. Tough, but very, very good. They shaped me in a way that allowed me to basically grow at the same time contribute, but they were not micromanaging me. Okay, so I was very, very fortunate. So it allowed me to really grow very fast with my team, and I had a very fast career path for the same reason. And the second one was I was fortunate to have mentors, external mentors, that which was later part in my last 8 years of my life, when I think many things got shaped beyond pure IT. I found mentors, and I also realized that there is a big difference between a boss and a mentor, and you need both of them to be good. But bosses are sometimes not your choices, but mentors are somebody you can choose. And I believe that those two sets of, let's say, people that came in my life had a very, very defining moment. Then I have been very fortunate to have great teams. I mean, I have wonderful people with me, so it's been always a pleasure to work with my team. So there is no doubt on that. But those are two elements that are made shape me.
So I want to dive a little bit into the mentoring topic for a second, because you mentioned there's a big difference as well. Both are important. So what do you see the role as a mentor, and why do you think it's such an important role?
I think people, most of the people, especially in the technical field like IT, people spend a lot of their time in learning technical skills and technical know-how. But at the end, it's an organization, it's a team. And what I saw was it's not your technical skill that makes you succeed, it's the teamwork that makes you succeed. Now, to create teamwork, it goes beyond pure, even managerial, there you create managers, but managers think they have to manage people, which is just beyond purely manage people. Now, those elements cannot come into people by going through managerial courses, etc. It doesn't come because each of us are very, very specific. We have had our lives built in a different way, our childhood, our habits, our ways to do things are very different. And mentors come into place because they have a toolbox which is there because they have been trained and prepared from their experiences. But they look at every person in a specific way, and then what they do is they don't tell you what to do. They tell you, because that's coaching and that goes into another scale. They actually give you outlines, and then what they do is they help understand your progress and what did you do right or wrong. And so you experience your change by doing things yourself. And this is what mentors help you to do. So they are able clearly to see a progression of person going from point A to point C, be it through a B path, which doesn't exist in a normal, let's say, organization through leadership or through managerial roles. And so that's what I found to be very, very interesting. And actually, to me, mentorship is mandatory if you want to scale up your performance. There is no doubt on that. I mean, there is absolutely.
Very interesting perspective. Yeah, I very much agree in terms of mentorship. I mean, I was very fortunate to have great mentors along the way as well, and still today. And I think it makes a huge, massive difference for sure. I want to dive a little bit into motivation or drive in that sense. I want to understand a little bit better why you get up every morning to go to work. And you're also, you're in a very specific industry as well. So I want to understand a little bit, is that by choice? Did you just by accident fall into this industry? What is it about maybe the industry, the work you do, the environment, or that you're in? What is it that gets you excited every day? What is it that gets you to wake up every morning and go face everything that happens at work?
So the industry I fell into was by chance. I mean, 28 years ago, I came into ST, into this industry. I had no idea what I'm getting into. But as this is the high-tech world, and this industry, which is semiconductor, actually defines all the new age stuff that we see around us. I mean, everybody has an access to smartphones and smart devices and Internet of Things. This is the genesis comes, of course, through semiconductor, then applying into a device through software that then you make it into a service. So what I see in this industry is incredible innovation. I mean, my peers, I mean, people that are in product groups that are developing things which we sometimes have access to, it's absolutely amazing. I mean, how it impacts people's life, how it impacts companies, how it impacts governments, how it impacts any structures is impressive, the capability that is there. And so that's what is exciting about the industry itself. It's very volatile, but at the same time, it's very, very innovative and changing every other day. Now, what makes me happy is two things. One is, of course, my work, which is helping the business of ST to to use IT tools to change their day-to-day work. And I think this is really, really exciting. And especially in the new age that we are in the last 8 years, I think that the innovation in IT space is incredible. What is now called digital transformation. That's what we've been doing since long. And now it's a buzzword. But the fact that you can transform an organization ability to be more efficient, more effective, and to do things beyond they've been used to using IT tool is impressive. Some of the things that are now we see everywhere is, I mean, what Ubers and all those disruptive companies that have come into the place using IT as a key enabler is very, very interesting in the space of companies like ST. I mean, ST, we have a very traditional, I mean, so companies exist since more than 50 years. So IT has been around for a very long time. And I believe there is a lot of scope of what we can do with new age tools. So that's what drives. Now, the second thing that drives me is my other passion, which is I love helping people to transform their lives. I believe people get stuck in life, which is what happened to me about 8 years ago when I went into this journey. And at that time, I did not have so many tools. And what I realized is that a lot of people get stuck in life, either through a health situation or a career issue or a relationship issue. And there are many, many things that exist, I mean, which are there today, everybody access, but there is not one roadmap or tool set that helps you to go from your stuck situation to unstuck. And that's what I help do, and I build my own kind of model to help people get out of that situation. So those are two things that drive me to wake up in the morning, to learn and to contribute.
Now, we talked last time a little bit about that model. I want to learn a bit more about that because I think it's very fascinating because you're doing that with your teams as well, with your organization. And I think it's very fascinating because very often very, very often what managers do or leaders do apply is sort of like the handbook approach to leadership. But you have discovered along the way something really interesting that goes a little bit beyond managerial skills. So like maybe you can share a little bit about how you sort of like discovered this thing that you found and what it actually is and how it works and how you use it.
So, well, it happened about 8 years ago when I went out of IT into procurement job, and I at that time I felt it was like a failure in my view because I had to leave my IT work and go into another one, and that led me into feeling being low and being losing my self-esteem, and so I went into this incredible journey of learning what is called alternative medicine. Scope. I mean, everything around energy healing, meditation, etc., etc. And well, it happened over a long time, and I'm still in the learning mode. So it was very progressive. But what I did do is that as I learned things, I started to practice around my family, around my colleagues, and everybody around me. I mean, lots of people in my workplace are my people that I've worked with, help them in different stages of their life. And over a period of time, I started to build into a model, which now I've kind of quite shaped it. And it involves three things. I believe when people get stuck in life, either with a health condition, which is probably one of the most prominent one, which then affects you being as a workplace, in your family, in everywhere, because when you're not well inside, you cannot be well outside. And that's probably one of the things that I think is very common in workplace. People don't express it. So I created this model. I mean, I discovered this model, let's say, not created, which is basically, it consists of three things. I believe when we address all those three things in unison, it leads a person to go from point A, where they're stuck, to another point B, where they feel free and liberated. And these three things are mind, which is brain in action. So it's about quality of your thoughts. It's about how you are as a person when you are quiet to yourself, which is what is your quality of thoughts, your habits, your behaviors, which have come from your earlier part of your life. So if you address them, bring them into a mode of more calmness, etc. This is then linked to your body, and I separate mind from body. Okay, body is your let's call it physically your physical self that supports the mind, and the third one is nutrition. So I believe food or what we eat has a big impact on how your quality of your thought, but it also have an impact on how your body is. When those three things are in coherence or are in unison or are in balance, then as a person, you are going to be in balance. There's no way to escape that. So when people get stuck is because one or more of those three elements are out of balance, and hence how they come to the world is in a different state. And most likely you are unaware of it. So now imagine a person out of balance being in a team, in a project team or in a team, and coming to workplace. For sure, his or her interaction with the rest of the people will be different. And that's where we start to judge people that this is a low performer or high performer, or he cannot do well and he can do well. Actually, it's nothing to do with that. My discovery, and it was a discovery, was that every person has an ability to be absolutely top performer. It's just that they don't have the right tools, or they have not overcome issue in their mind or in their body in nutrition, and as a result, basically they will underperform. So as a result, I have basically built some kind of simple tools which can help people to go out of all of them. Again, when I say built, I have to be very careful. There's nothing that I've created. Everything exists in the world. I mean, there are lots and lots of people that have taken ancient knowledge, new modern age, and you find gurus and experts in the area of mind, in the area of body, in the area of nutrition. I just put those best things from my learning together and create it into something I could give to people back, and that's what I do.
It's a very fascinating thing, because I think the reason I think this is because I think many people are aware of this. Many people understand, oh, it has to do a lot with the mind, has to do a lot with the body. We know this. This is not news, right? But the difference is very often between sort of like knowing it or being aware of it and being open or being able to speak about it, wanting to speak about it. I mean, we don't have to go into details, but I mean, meditation is something that now more and more people say, and very senior business leaders say, well, this is something that's very helpful because I actually do it. But let's be honest, there is there is thousands or millions of other people who practice meditation but would never in the world tell anyone about it, because they look at it as as something like that shouldn't be talked about. It's a taboo topic, and also it's a cultural thing very often. I mean, it's sort of like, okay, if you do meditation, you got mental issues and stuff like that, right? It's just,
for example,
it's very interesting because it's not something new, right? We know this, we understand that the mind and the body and the nutrition and the spirit and all these things, they are there, they need to be in balance, and then we try to cover them with all these business buzzwords and everything, so we don't have to talk about what's really important and what really matters. And that's why I love this conversation, because I mean, you're stepping up and saying, okay, no, let's talk about this, because I think it's important. And that's why I love this interview so much, because we need to carry this out a lot more, because it's great that you're doing this internally, and that basically you're building your organization. And and doing this with the organization. And I think it's also important that we carry this message outwards. Now, I want to dive a little bit into the section of lessons. I mean, we talked about some of the things already along the way, but I'd like to focus a little bit more on that topic. So if you look back and you had to pick maybe one or two of the absolutely most important lessons that you learned in your life, in your career, on your journey, what would they be?
Okay, so one lesson I think, which I know it's non-technical, but I think is a very important lesson, which I incorporate into my model of mentorship, is most people fall from grace and never get up from there. I mean, failures or any kind of failures, whether at workplace or in health or in relationship, etc. And they consider failures as something so deep, and most of them don't get out of it, or they carry it for a long time. And I learned something so brilliant, is my failure, which I considered failure at the time, and I considered was actually one of the most defining moments of my life. I think it saved my life, it saved my family, it saved my health, I think. So if I had continued what I had been doing in the past and did not have that break, I would have probably had been somebody else. Okay. I think this to me is one of the most defining, and I call it, and I'm actually thinking of even writing a book. Your trauma is your gift. This is, to me, that's what I keep saying, that a difficult situation is actually a gift. At the time that you're going through it, you feel miserable, but if you look at it afterwards, you will say, wow, that was the best thing that happened to my life. And I think that to me is one summary lesson of my life, is to never consider a failure as a reason to shut down yourself or to go to different paths, but to use it as a way to learn from it, but actually to say, thank God, if it was not this hardship, this failure, I would not have been where I am now. So
yeah, this is a very interesting one, because it's so common. Like, we experience these things on such an often basis, and in the moment it's like, oh my God, what just happened? Oh my God, I don't know what's going on. This is a total chaos, and I would I don't think this is anything good at all. And then maybe a couple of days along the way, or sometimes a couple of weeks, sometimes a couple of months, and even sometimes a couple of years along the way, we look back and we go like, well, this actually was quite important, and it shaped me actually in a very positive way. One of the topics I would like to go back to a little bit is leadership. We talked about it already. Maybe we're going back to the model again that you talked about, but I would like to understand a little bit more of how you do these things. How do you manage your daily life? How do you, lead or be in charge of such a large organization and still stay sane every day? I mean, how do you go about it? Do you have certain rituals? Do you have certain ways of making sure you keep that awareness? Do you have a way of keeping your body fit, your mind fit, the nutrition there? How do you go about it?
Okay, so I would divide into my ritual and then how I work with the people. Okay, my ritual is exactly, so I follow my three things every day. I have a very interesting morning ritual. I do 10 things before I even get out of literally my bed, and those are 10 things that is to put my mind. For example, I don't touch my mobile phone in the morning. I wait for 1 hour. I read. I journal. I do breathing exercise. I do my meditation. Okay, hydrate myself. So there are a few rituals that I've done and do every morning. Then when it comes to working with my team, with my people, I have about 300 people spread in different parts of the world. there is few principles that I learned many long ago that I now practice a lot. One of them is my simple principle is that we be transparent, share with everybody at the time that it is important for them to know. So I'm highly transparent to people. Transparency to me is number one thing. So which means no hiding, no the politics, the things that is a common thing. This is out of my syllabus, and I am very clear to all people that I don't like it. I don't do myself, and I don't do that. So this is my front thing. So the second thing, which to me is very important, is let people share openly their failures or successes, etc. So we do every time there's a highlight and a low light, and every low light is not something that is used to say something difficult to people. It's just to say, what lesson do you learn from that? Can you avoid it next time? What can we do to avoid it looking forward? Third thing is I highly empowered my whole team. I mean, literally, and I say it quite often, is that I am not needed in my role. The only thing I do, which is the value I bring, is I make them all work cohesively. So all my team is highly networked. I mean, people work from within different organizations, different geographies. They are codependent on others, but it works clockwise. There is no need for putting intervention, etc., etc. So the only thing is that, of course, you have some time oils to put, and it's an IT world. Things go out of control very quickly. So that's the reason why you have an outer view, but the inner view, I keep it to them. So empowering teams, making them highly aware of things. So communication is key. I also love to build people with their specific skills or talents to come up. And so some people are very good in doing things A, they must be promoted to do that, and some are very good in doing B, they're promoted to do that, etc. So it's making people as the basis of my organization. So if you hear the three things that I put on top of it, is always about making people, etc. Then of course this is wrapped around looking at my customers. I mean, customers are very important. So listening to them, either myself or my team, so they are highly empowered. They work with all different business organizations. They deliver projects and innovations to them, and making sure that those customers are always satisfied with what we can do. At the end of the story, I think if I have to talk about leadership style, it's much more empowering and letting people express, fail in a safe environment, do the right things which are there, but at the same time keep the sanctity of the organization, of the value we must provide to the business clear. That is never compromised. So
very good point. I mean, just what I, if I try to summarize it, what I got is one is your personal inner place, basically, or your inner peace, the ritual that you're going through, basically, and the other one is the highly networked organization. I think that's a really interesting one as well, because it's when it comes to different locations, different professions, different cultures, different anything that we have today, it's not an easy challenge. And if you can create that networked environment, many things just become easier because of that one thing, which is absolutely essential. And then the next thing, or the last thing that you mentioned, is sort of like understanding the actual vision or the purpose behind everything, understanding the requirements of the customer, the business, basically understanding that this is an enabler, technology is an enabler for many things. So understanding, and I think these three things summarize it really well. And I mean, these are absolutely essential points. And I think if that's the only thing, I can take away from this conversation, it's been, incredibly valuable. So this is a very engaging topic. The last thing I would like to dive into is a little bit of an up in the clouds question. And so let's imagine for a second you're a magician and you got a magic wand. And let's say you had a wish, to the genie, and you could wish for anything you wanted. What is something that you would wish for that would multiply the impact on the world, on your organization, on the work you have many, many, many times?
So my interesting you say magic wand. I would say that if we make people fully enabled, take away all the, I call them habits or behaviors that block them in doing what their full potential is. If you do that one thing, which is make people completely to be able to bring their full potential, I think we multiply 10x. I mean, especially in organizations that come with, let's say, legacy of IT, etc., where there is all the cultures of ages that are there. I think this is where there is a huge benefit, 10x as you call it, for people to do. Because I believe human people, everybody wants to do their best. There's not one person that wants to do not their best. At the same time, when I hear Gallups, and even when I see some of the engagement results, it's disappointing that more than 60% or 67% people are not engaged. That's a big opportunity, I think. So human capital, as it's called, or social capital, is really something which is probably one subject that could multiply 10x. I think technology exists, which is there, and all the tools exist that are there. So these are things that exist. It's the people that make the difference. So that's what I would say is would be my magic wand.
I love that magic wand with the the topic on potential. Just making sure or allowing people to live to their utmost potential. Yeah, that is a very, very big one. So Manu, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it. We're going to link below this video to some of the sources, to the company page, to your LinkedIn profile as well, so people can follow on what you're up to, the exciting things that you're up to, and also connect with you, of course. So once again, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure.